In 1953, Ellen Potter Hagen lived what most would call a perfect life. Her husband, Thomas, was a sharp-minded New York businessman, and she was a dreamer. A woman raised among misty hills and ghost stories of the English countryside. But when they returned to her childhood village for a quiet vacation, one of those old stories would turn out to be real, and it would cost Ellen everything she loved. Henthorpe, a small northern English village where nothing ever really changed. Ellen had grown up here, listening to local legends whispered by candlelight. The most famous of all was about New Dawn Mansion. Built in the 1600s, a grand estate with one terrible curse. The legend said, if you meet someone on the mansion grounds, you'll never know if they're alive or dead until it's too late. When Thomas bought the long-abandoned mansion as a surprise, Ellen half laughed and half shivered. Just promise me, she teased. If you meet a stranger here, make sure he's not a ghost. Thomas only smiled. Ellen, there's no such thing as ghosts. Only gullible people. For the first few days, life at New Dawn Mansion was peaceful. Ellen tended the garden. Thomas worked in the study. But she noticed something different about him. He was distracted, uneasy. He often stared out the balcony, lost in thought. One evening, as the sun melted into the hills, Thomas suddenly froze. There's someone by the gate, he whispered. Ellen followed his gaze and saw a man, standing perfectly still in the fading light. Before she could speak, Thomas was already running toward him. When they reached the gate, the man was gone. Ellen tried to lighten the mood. Maybe it was one of my ghosts, she joked. Thomas didn't even smile. He said quietly, I know who that was. And he's no ghost. The next morning, a telegram arrived. Thomas read it, then finally looked relieved. He told Ellen there had been a lawsuit, people jealous of his recent fortune. But now it was withdrawn. It's all over, he said. We can finally relax. For the next few days, life returned to normal, until one afternoon when a stranger came calling. Ellen was pruning flowers when a man appeared at the gate. Good day, ma'am, he said politely. I'm looking for Mr. Hagen. My name's Daniel Carver. His voice was calm, gentle, almost rehearsed. Ellen hesitated. My husband doesn't have any appointments, she said. Please, the man replied. I only need a few minutes. Against her better judgment, Ellen let him in. She directed him to Thomas's study, then went to the kitchen to make tea. When she returned 10 minutes later, the study was empty. No Thomas, no Daniel Carver. The door to the garden stood open, the curtains swaying in the wind. That was the last time Ellen ever saw her husband alive. The police searched for weeks. There were no footprints, no evidence of foul play. Locals said the mansion had claimed another soul. 2 months later, Ellen returned to New York, alone. She met Thomas's business partner, Richard West, hoping for answers. When Ellen mentioned the name Daniel Carver, Richard froze, his face drained of color. Say that again, he whispered. Ellen repeated the name. Richard opened a drawer and took out a photograph. Is this the man you saw? He asked. Ellen nodded. Yes, that's him. Richard's hands began to shake. That's impossible, he muttered. Daniel Carver doesn't exist. He explained that Thomas had once cheated another businessman, Ben Stark. In the contract, Thomas created a fake identity, a name buried deep in the fine print, Daniel Carver. Using it, he stripped Stark of every penny he owned. Ben Stark lost everything, his business, his home, his life's work. He filed a lawsuit, but the courts ruled in Thomas's favor. On October 10th, Ben Stark shot himself in the head. The same night, Thomas saw a man standing by the gate. The same night, Ellen joked it might be a ghost. Ellen realized the truth. The man who came to the mansion, the polite visitor who asked to see her husband, wasn't Daniel Carver. He was Ben Stark. the ghost of the man Thomas had ruined, come to collect what he was owed. And just as the legend said, inside the grounds of New Dawn Mansion, you'll never know if the person you meet is among the living or the dead. The mansion still stands today, empty and silent. Some nights, villagers say they see a man standing at the gate, waiting for another soul who doesn't believe in ghosts.